Hello everybody, it's Tommy and welcome back to an update for the Disney save. Today's video is going to be a little bit of a speed build, but it's mostly just an update on some lots that I had previously built for the Disney save, being some of my Beauty and the Beast lots. So you guys know that I have been working towards updating Willow Creek and basically moving all of my Beauty and the Beast themed lots out of Willow Creek so that we could get them ready to put them in to Henford on Bagley. So today's video is actually going to be my first technical speed build for Henford on Bagley, but it's basically an update of Belle's Cottage and the Belle's Village Marketplace community lot that we did have in Willow Creek before. They're going to fit here a lot better, and Cottage Living came with a lot of really great new items that are going to be super helpful for some of the stuff that I had originally wanted to do for a lot of these lots but was unable to at the time. And aesthetically, I would say that they just are going to fit here a lot nicer. I think that with the backdrops of like the forest and the way the lots are more spread out and the fact that you don't have the modern looking streets or the lamps, it's all stuff that originally really bothered me about the way that these builds looked in Willow Creek that we really just don't have to deal with here anymore. So we're going to be updating them a little bit, giving them the proper cottage living quality of life changes and updates, adding a water wheel to this lot, adding some of these barns, and just generally changing the decor. And then the second half of the video is going to be updating the village marketplace that was a community lot that was also located in Willow Creek, and that one got some pretty big changes, I have to say, probably more so than this one. I spent the entire day updating, like literally an entire day. Like I woke up in the morning and all the way through the evening I was updating the marketplace because it's such a large lot and I really wanted to make sure everything was matching and just super updated and what I had originally visioned for these builds to begin with. So that is going to be today's video, but of course we still have to update some of the other Beauty and the Beast builds, being Gaston's Cottage, the Bimbette's Cottage, and Gaston's Tavern that are all also going to be moving to this world. So Gaston's Cottage and the Bimbette's Cottage are actually going to be getting combined into one lot. To me, it made a lot more sense to combine them into one family so that we had maybe just one extra lot here. There's only 12 lots in Henford on Bagley and no secret lots as far as I'm aware of. So it's not the smallest world, but it's not the biggest one. And there are so many really great things that we can and could have done with this world. I didn't want to just completely take it up with a ton of Beauty and the Beast. I think it makes a ton more sense to just combine those two households. They can live together on one of the larger lots and basically get this larger farm cottage. So that is actually going to be the next video that comes out after this one, and then probably following that we will have an update to Gaston's Tavern. Actually, I'm not sure. I don't really know how much I need to update Gaston's Tavern. It was always kind of originally designed very close to what I wanted it to be the first time. I'll probably do some slight updates to it, but I don't know that it will end up being its own video. I don't think it maybe necessarily needs to have its own video, but what we will definitely be doing quite soon after this is creating some of those Beauty and the Beast characters that never made it into Willow Creek because we didn't know where the castle was going to go. So that would be Belle, Beast, the castle staff, Cogsworth, Lumiere, Mrs. Potts, Chip, all of those really the big characters from Beauty and the Beast that we just never made. We're finally going to be able to make them because they are all going to be living in Henford on Bagley. I will tell you guys that I am probably going to wait a little while to do Beast Castle. Beast Castle is also going to be going into this world, but I am going to wait because I have a trip coming up to Disney World and I have reservations for Be Our Guest, so I'm going to be able to go inside Disney World's version of Beast Castle. And I'm really excited to check it out and just see some of the little details and see what they've personally done with the interior of it all so that I can hopefully use that for inspiration when building. And I just feel like it just makes more sense for me to wait to go on that and see that in person before I really start the build. So usually I will do a speed build and then a creative sim, but what we're actually going to do is be updating the Beauty and the Beast builds, and then I'll put out some creative sims, and the castle build will probably come in a month or two. It's not going to be something that gets touched on immediately. In fact, we might even move to a different movie before we come back to that castle build, because my trip is not until mid-October. So stay tuned for that, but it is going to be a little bit before we finally get to see like the full thing all together. Now, as far as this lot goes, there were a couple of major things that I wanted to update right away. Obviously, we wanted to have the water wheel here. Originally, I did have a version of the water wheel, which is pretty much the only way that you could do it at the time, and that would be to make a pool and use what the game calls like a turkey sculpture and make those into like fake wheels and have little water fountains kind of wedged in between them so that it shoots water around it, and it's like basically the closest thing we ever had to this until they added cottage living, and now we have these rotating actual water wheels, and they do move in live mode, which I think is just the most beautiful touch ever. And we got the pond tool, so now I can actually properly put in a small pond there so that it makes sense that it's all sort of attached to the house in that way. Probably in real life would be connected to some kind of a larger river, but we are definitely not there with the Sims and probably never will be. So made a small little pond, added in the basically old rustic water wheel. There are a couple of choices in debug, and some of them are more old looking than the others. I did go ahead and wedge some of the water fountains, the ones that sort of shoot in an arc, into the water wheel, just because I wasn't sure how much it was going to actually animate like water rotating, if that makes sense. But I'm actually going to play that in live mode and just kind of see how it looks and then remove it or add more depending on how that looks. And then for this lot, I basically removed the entire back portion because in Willow Creek, the lot was originally facing the other way. So it was kind of a long straight lot, and this laid it out to be more horizontal. So everything that was in the back of the cottage had to get removed, but that included things like the garden area, the original area where the chicken coop was, and then I also had an outhouse because the interior of this cottage in particular didn't really leave room for a proper bathroom. So an outhouse kind of made more sense, especially in this instance. So instead, I had to kind of work around the outside of it and make sure that we added at least one of the larger barns so that we could add in probably a llama, because in the movie they're shown to have sheep. And we don't have sheep, but pretty much the closest thing that we do have is a llama because you can still take wool from it, dye wool, so it's kind of the same concept. Wanted to make sure that we also added chickens here as well, and then just making sure that we replace the outhouse. I actually started to build a new outhouse and then realized I could just go to my old lot and save the room and then place it down here so I didn't have to rebuild it. And then just generally speaking, I wanted to go back to the interior of basically all of my Beauty and the Beast builds and just double check and make sure that there wasn't any new decor from Cottage Living that I could add that would really add to the general feel of it. And right away, one of the things that is also really great about Cottage Living is this old style refrigerator and stove that are just going to be perfect for pretty much all of my Beauty and the Beast builds. We only really had up until that point the one base game old refrigerator. I don't really know what time period that one would originally have been from, but to me, this one just screams a lot more appropriate for the time period. It looks like it's made out of wood. It just looks like it could be like an off the grid type of vibe, and I was really excited about it, so I did go ahead and add that to this build, and probably will be featured in all of the Beauty and the Beast builds. Now, I did get asked if I was going to update this lot so that Belle could have her own room, and I want to say that the reason that Belle never originally got a room in this house was a couple of different things. So first of all, this house actually has a basement, so you could use that as her room if you wanted to. And the other major reason is that in the movie, it kind of shows her going upstairs to her bedroom, but the exterior of the cottage doesn't really fit the interior. Surprise, surprise. That happens pretty routinely with Disney movies, so it didn't make sense to me that she would get a room because it doesn't actually fit into the exterior shape at all. she basically would have had a room kind of in the attic. So if we had a really playable way to do an attic space that I felt like I could have done well, I probably would have added one up there, but other than that, I didn't really feel like it's necessary. Also, Belle's not going to live here, so the only reason that you would really want to have her living on this lot is if you were doing the original Beauty and the Beast story from like the beginning. And like I said, you could definitely use the basement for that. But for the purposes of the Disney save, I knew right away that Maurice was going to live here alone. So it's very much set up to be a single sim small cottage house that's dedicated to all of his interests and hobbies and needs. So it's kind of post after the movie, and Belle will be living in the cottage anyway, so that makes sense to me in my head. But just so that you guys kind of get the vibe of why I did not put one there and why it wasn't updated, it would have changed the outside of the cottage so much in a way that I just would not have been happy with. So I decided to keep basically the original exterior. Really happy with it. Just had to rearrange the garden and a lot of the stuff that goes around it. Now for the village marketplace. This lot saw some huge changes. Like I said, this took me the better part of a day to sort out, and it has so many new updates. So originally, this lot is a community lot type. It basically is the kind that comes with eco lifestyle, and your Sims can vote to change the lot to whatever they might want for that particular period. And depending on what they vote for, the lot is supposed to change a little bit, and it has different requirements that you need to meet so that when they do vote for it, they can use those particular items. And my original version of the marketplace, when your Sims voted for the different versions, you really wouldn't see any major changes to the lot. It was basically the same thing, just had the items that were required for the voted lot type in various hidden areas around. Like, you might not have even noticed, you might not have even been able to necessarily find the items very easily. I didn't want them to be like a focal point of the build. I wanted it to stay the same. But this time around, I decided to embrace the idea that it changes and really use and focus on some of those special items that you will get to use when you vote on the different lot types. So generally speaking, no matter which version your Sims vote for, it's still going to be a marketplace. It's going to look almost identical. All of the buildings are going to remain exactly the same. The layout is going to be the same. It will, generally speaking, never change. The major changes that you're going to see now are that you will have special items in the center around the fountain, such as the candle maker, the fabricator, the recycler, and market stalls, things like that, depending on what your Sims vote for. Alongside that, some of these buildings have had extreme interior changes. The biggest one is the first one we're working on here, which was kind of like your produce store. So this was originally supposed to be fruit and vegetable, meat, gardening supplies. It has a garden around the back. It's like your general time appropriate grocery store. But I always hated the way that the interior looked for this. I just didn't like that we don't have any like proper food stalls, and I was kind of stacking a lot of fruit and vegetables onto the interior and like filling shelves and things like that. But it's just such a large space, and we really just don't have the appropriate items to do it the way that I would have wanted. But kind of a new development to the Disney save that I'm actually really excited about is I recently reached out to another creator in the Sims community called Sati Sim, and they make the most incredible functional, I call them like reskins of items. They are CC free, and basically what they do is they're like a tool master. So they will use Tool, which is a mod that once you remove this mod, you don't actually have to keep it in game to like use any of the items that are created with it. But it's basically a really special mod that allows you to do a big variety of things. One of the big things that it's used for is to add things off of a lot. So you can add trees around a lot and get off of the grid basically. But one of the other really cool things that you can do is really get into the nitty-gritty of placing an individual item, whether that be like rotating it on a weird axis, raising it just a little bit more or less than what your general like 9 and 0 keys will do, and really transforming some objects. Like you can actually bend and twist and move some objects and scale them to be shaped better for depending on what you're working with. And people who are good with Tool are like incredible builders. Like they can just make some of the most incredible things. And so something caught my eye on Twitter a while back, and that was that SatiSims had made a new version of the community lot board, which is the board that your Sims come up to vote what they want. I think it's called the marketplace board or community board, something like that. And in the original version of the game, it looks extremely modern. So when you're trying to put it on a lot like this, where everything is supposed to be this old-timey village, it doesn't look good at all. And in the past, I kind of just tucked it behind a building and called it a day. But she actually made a version that was medieval, where she made custom paintings and kind of put them over the top of it. And like I'm saying, this is CC free. You can literally go onto her gallery and download these into your game right now off of the gallery. In fact, I will link her YouTube channel and her creator ID for the gallery down below so that you can like personally go and check some of these items out. But they are going to be featured in the build today, so I kind of wanted to explain some of what you're going to be seeing. And I asked her if it would be cool if I borrowed that community board to use, because it uses a lot of tool to kind of shape around the object. It keeps it functional. You can still go up to the board and use it and vote how you normally would, but it basically just completely changes the way that it looks. So it's very wooden looking, it's rustic, it's more medieval, and it fits a lot better with this village and what I wanted to originally do here. And she gave me permission to use it, as well as anything else that that caught my eye. And there were definitely a couple of things that caught my eye, in particular for this lot, because she has also recently redone the fabricator, the recycler, the candle maker, the experiment table, the kids experiment table, all in a medieval style, basically by layering debug objects on top of the functional one that we have. And so now you still have that functional original item, but it looks a lot more time appropriate for what I would want for this lot. So with her permission, she's allowed me to use that stuff and include it in the save file, and I could not be more grateful, and just huge shout out to everything that she creates, because it's just incredible. So I will link again her channel in my description box down below, as well as her creator ID, so that you can go onto the gallery and personally download things. But she also made a food stall, which was really great for this build, and I saw it and just immediately knew that we were going to have to do a redo on this original shape, basically turn the building so that I could place it in here, because how she does it is creates them as rooms and then uploads them to the gallery as a room. So then you just download the room and kind of place it on the lot like you would any other room, and they're just amazing. So we have this beautiful food stall in here that is much better than what was originally placed in here, and probably more appropriate for what you would see, right? Because you would want to come in here and have fresh things from the garden for sale, and that is exactly what I wanted for this marketplace. So it fits in here a lot better, it looks a lot better, as well as the more functional garden around the back, where you would actually have somebody who works in the village growing those and stocking the store. And we now have the low to the ground, more functional gardening plots that come with cottage living as well. So I redid the garden around the back so that it all kind of plays into the vibe of it all. And of course, depending on what your Sims vote for, you can actually come here and garden and use it. And I think you would actually, no matter what your Sims vote for, I think you would be able to come here pretty much year round and vote for or use that gardening plot area around the back. Some of the other buildings saw some minor changes as well. The library has gotten an update, very small. I did want to add kind of like a lofted area to the top of the library. Unfortunately, we still do not have the ability to add stairs and ladders on a diagonal, so we have to make faux ladders on a diagonal. So it's a non-functional lofted area, but the building itself is on a diagonal, so I knew pretty much going into the design of the building that I wasn't going to be allowing the Sims to be able to get up there, but they can get to a lot of the other shelves around the outside of it, and it's got a couple of like small decor changes and things like that. I've also added some of the ivy, and I think think it's called Wisteria, from the debug section of Cottage Living to kind of make the buildings match a little bit more. I didn't change out many of the original designs of the buildings, like being the windows and the doors and stuff. I did a little bit here and there, but I really do like how this was originally designed, and I think that for some of the future builds that we're going to be doing for this world, those doors and windows and things are going to suit that style of cottage a lot better versus what I did here originally. I was always really happy with a lot of the exterior stuff that we got out of Belle's Village, so I didn't really feel the need to go in and change it too much, just add a little bit more character and a lot more like terrain paint and plants and chicken coops and little like decorations and things sort of around the marketplace. The stuff that I had originally kind of designed on the lot with like faux statues and things where you have like the ceramic chickens kind of hidden in the bushes and things like that, and now we can actually have chickens. So I did add a large barn to this lot. I did add a chicken coop, and then we have the garden plots as well, so you will get some liveliness. There's also some of those debug rabbit holes that come with cottage living, so you will get rabbits spawning on this lot, which is really exciting. Some other changes to this lot include a small change to there is a combined building that is the florist / the seamstress, and then above the seamstress I had previously put, I guess, what you could call a small tavern. I basically just wanted this lot to have a space where your Sims could go and grab some food if they wanted to. If you're going to spend a lot of time here, I feel like it just needs to be like sort of readily available. So I had originally the Discover University like I don't know what they're called. They're like food servers, and you didn't need to hire a person to fill the food. So I had chosen to put that up there originally. But it's so modern looking, and after I had replaced like the food stalls in the produce building and the little marketplace building and some of the other stuff on this lot, it was like the only modern looking item remaining. So at that point it just makes sense to completely take it out. So I did replace that with another one of SatiSim's creations, which is a medieval style stove. And it is a functional medieval style stove that I just kind of placed up there instead of putting the original Discover University item in its place. So basically your Sims will be able to go up there and cook instead of having the food just sort of like spawn in the upstairs area. And I guess it's like a tavern, but I basically just wanted a tavern area where your Sims didn't have to hire somebody. Plus with these community lots, they're not really meant to like serve food in that way, if that makes sense. So there's really no way to like do that and do the multifunctional aspect of building a lot like this. But your Sims can at least go up there and cook. And I've actually featured that in another one of my builds that is also in Horn King's Castle in their kitchen, because it's so old looking and just exactly perfect for what I would want with a super stone old like mountain castle, which is pretty much what that was. So it fits really well in here, and it definitely fit really well in there also. Another one of SatiSim's creations that is featured here, I think nope, definitely not the last one. Another one of her creations that is featured here is the forge. So she had a forge on her gallery, and I'm not quite sure exactly like what it does, because I did have a forge here as well, and it was basically just a fireplace that I covered in a bunch of stones to make it look as old as possible. But she has hers laid out completely different, and it looks like it has some functional fireplaces and fire pits kind of around it and inside of it. So I'm curious to test that in live mode and actually see what it does if it's not just like a fireplace. But we don't really have anything in the game that would represent like a forge even to be used as like an item that could be covered so that you could use it as a forge. Like, we don't have anything relating to that, but the blacksmith definitely needed one either way. So I did go ahead and use that as well and plop that in place of the forge that I had previously built so that we could get something that I think is just like a little bit more authentic. The seamstress got an update. I put some of the brand new Dream Home Decorator clothes in that space, as well as some cloth and things like that. I originally had done some really weird things in the space, like moved shoes up and down so that I could get them on the tables, and I was able to actually place shoes down properly because that pack comes with shoes and things like that. And then the last major update, which you will be able to see in the screenshots, is just those extra items that are for each individual type of space, like the maker space, the garden, depending on what it is, around the fountain in the center of the lot, so that those items are kind of readily available for your Sims to be able to come and use. And I hope that you like today's updates. Like I said, the next video will be a speed build of the new Bembette's and Gaston's cottage, so stay tuned for that, as well as some Beauty and the Beast creative Sims very, very soon. If you would like to support the Disney Save on Patreon, you can do so by clicking the link in my description box down below, or the one at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Hit that little bell icon below to turn on post notifications so you can get updated every single time I post, and I will talk to you all in the next one.